Good morning, everyone. We'll wait just a few minutes to get started. Do we know if we have quorum?
We have quorum and we can begin the meeting.
Great, I'll wait just another minute. Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Megan Schmidt. I'm the chair of this committee as well as the director of operations for FACT. And I want to welcome everyone to today's meeting as well as the public hearing. We may have some new faces and participants today. And I also wanted to welcome our new members. So thank you for joining us. And I believe I'll hand it over to Sandag to do some housekeeping items.
Or not.
Welcome everyone to the July 2022 meeting. Before we get started, I would like to ask our interpreter to introduce themselves and walk through how they access our interpretation services for today's meeting.
Thank you. I will repeat this message in English. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, por favor desplácese a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, que es el globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom en celular o tableta, presione los puntos suspensivos, luego Interpretation y luego el idioma. To use the Zoom interpreting feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are located and click on the interpretation icon, which is the world. Select your language, and if you are joining using the Zoom mobile app on a cell phone or tablet, please press the ellipses, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then do we need to take a roll?
Yes. Okay, now just a couple of quick notes before we get started. This meeting is being reordered because this is a new process for us all. I'm going to go over basic instructions for both council members and members of the public to participate today. First, for SSTAC members, if you would like to speak or provide comment, notify staff by first clicking your camera on or two, raising your hand. Please make sure to unmute your microphone to speak. And if you are not speaking, please make sure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is off. For clarity of the record, please identify yourself each time you speak. Please only use the chat box if you are having technical difficulties. For voting, by the state law, all votes in the teleconference meeting must be by roll call vote. After there has been a motion and a second, I will call for the vote of each member individually, and that member will be unmuted to vote. At the conclusion of the voting, the chair will announce the result. For members of the public who are virtually attending, this meeting may comment by raising their hands in Zoom. To do so, click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of the toolbar. If you are participating by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. When the chair recognizes you, You will be unmuted by staff and can make your comment. For every agenda item, the chair must request public comments, and this must be stated clearly on the record. We need to state that either there are none for the record or that we have public comments. For items with inaction, the clerk performs the roll call vote. The chair will ask for the motion and the second and recognize members. The members themselves must speak for the record. Lastly, please speak at a normal pace so that the interpreter can adequately interpret all the information. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions. It is now time to take roll call.
I just want to clarify that we may not need to take roll because we already have established that we have quorum. Is that correct?
Yes, Megan.
Okay, thank you. So then we can go ahead and go to item 2, which is public comments and member comments. I believe that this will be different than our public hearing. So if you had comments specifically for that, we'll wait until we get to that item on the agenda. But if any members or participants from the public have any comment at this time, we can take them now. Sharon?
Megan, would you please clarify what you were saying there? What's the
Regarding-
difference between the two comments?
So if it's specifically about item 10, the unmet needs public hearing, then we'll hold those comments until we get to item 10. But if it's regarding anything else, I believe that's not on the agenda, we can take those now.
And would unmet needs qualify as perhaps safety?
I believe that the unmet needs is more about a lack of service as far as availability of transportation. Safety, I think we can probably take comments now.
Okay, I have a safety issue.
Okay, go ahead, Sharon.
I was on the 30 bus coming back from Mission Valley, got on the 30 at Old Town. And the problem, and this was on a Saturday, the problem that is occurring is keeping us safer on the buses. And some people just get on that do not want to pay. This woman got on and refused to pay. She went to the back, and then a person from the back came forward and she said, that woman is in the back squatting down and peeing. So to have someone on the bus that's urinating, to have people get on the bus that don't have access to it because they don't have a pass or anything is a little disarming and doesn't make me feel safe. So I don't know what to do about that. I understand the driver's position because it takes a long time for the police to come or for them to send out a replacement bus, but that certainly needs to be looked at and reviewed.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. I think we probably would have some feedback from MTS on what to do in that type of situation. If they want to follow up maybe at the next meeting or individually with you. Does anyone else have any public comments? Jan?
You can go ahead and speak, Jan Scott.
Jan, you're on mute. We cannot hear you.
Jan Scott, would you like to speak? Go ahead.
Okay, maybe she's having some technical difficulties and we can circle back.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to reiterate what the last speaker said, because we recently lost a young girl who got on the bus without paying, and she is autistic, 13 years old, and ended up in Escondido. So I'm a little concerned also about people getting on the bus that aren't paying.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Heidi?
Good morning. I'd like to, when MTS or NCTD responds to Sharon's question, I hope it will be in the meeting, because there are issues that arise, and you know perfectly well if the driver doesn't want to wait around for the police or other authorities to arrive. And yet, we're concerned either for our safety or health or the welfare of a rider. And so hopefully how do you respond? How do the bus drivers respond to situations that are threatened to get out of control or are out of control? Would be real valuable to us to hear. Thanks, that's all.
Thanks, Clyde. I think maybe we can propose to have an item on the agenda next month on safety, and then we can have both MTS and NCTD share the protocols and the expectations to make sure that everybody knows what to do, both on the driver's side as well as the riders. So I would like to propose that for next the next meeting. Are there any other public comments?
There are no commenters at this moment for this item.
Great, thank you. Our next item is approval of the meeting minutes from March 15th. Does anyone have any changes for the minutes? Or would like to make a motion for approval?
Ted Kagan, voting member, like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Wayne Landon, I second it.
Great, thank you. And now I believe we'll take the roll call for all members.
Yes. Ted Kagan,
Ted Kagan, present.
Ivy Kohler,
Yes.
David Jackson, David Jackson is absent. Todd Lordson. Todd Lordson is absent. Alex Warner.
Yes.
Marcy Roque.
Yes.
Amy Vance.
Present.
Anthony Del Sales. Anthony Del Sales is absent. Matt Bauer.
Present.
Avelia, sorry, this is Brian with Zeneg. Just really quick, we're not asking for, this isn't roll call, this is actual voting for the minutes. So if you can just confirm your yes vote.
Yes.
Thank you. And then Avelia, also Todd Shaw can vote for David Jackson back on one of our large members. Since David's not here, Todd is the alternate, can vote.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Kristen Steinberg.
I was not at the last meeting, so I will abstain from this vote.
Marilyn Greenbolt,
Present.
Washburn is absent. Carla Perez,
Yes.
Mary Baldomera,
Yes, and I just like to add that the jurisdiction is North County, not MTS.
Yeah, I believe you have us mixed up.
Thank you.
and the motion passes with those present.
Great, thank you. All right, next.
I'm so sorry, I need to go back. Megan Schmidt needs to vote.
Oh, yes.
And Todd still too. You can go back up to
And
Todd.
Todd Shaw, please.
And also Arun Prem from FACT, voting yes.
And Maroon, oh, yes.
Todd, it looks like you are self-muted.
Todd wrote yes in the chat, so he's a yes. And the motion passes with those present.
Great, thank you. We can go ahead and move on to item number 4, which is the Next Generation 511 presentation with Stacy Unholes.
Hello, Chair. This is Alex Estrella. Can I provide some opening remarks on ITS staff first before I turn it over to Stacy, our consultant team?
Yes, please.
Well, good morning, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to come to STAC today to talk about this item. So before I turn it over to our consultant team, who will be helping us and walk us through the presentation, I would just like to provide some opening remarks and give you some context on this item and to get your input through this item. My name is Alex Estrella, and I'm the Technology Planning Manager. And with me is Stacy Unholz, as included in the agenda, part of our consultant team. But as part of this item, as you're aware, our SANDAG Board of Directors approved our 2021 regional plan back in December 2021. And the plan includes a number of transportation vision components that transforms the way people will move, the type of transportation services that will be provided. So SANDAG staff initiated some work on implementing some of these concepts included in the regional plan. But a lot of these concepts are predicated on the use of technology. And specifically, if you recall, one of the key components of the regional plan included the development of this NextOS, Next Operating System concept. And essentially, the NextOS ensures that all transportation systems talk to each other, that we provide the appropriate services, so we provide mode choice to everybody, for all travelers and all users of the transportation system in the region. And one of the key components that we start thinking of developing these NextOS solutions is the development of what we call concept of operations reports. I don't want to get too technical, but maybe one way to think about these is like, when you start thinking about capital improvement projects, you know, you go through the environmental process, you go through some technical documents, you go through the environmental clearance, and then you go through design. But on the technology side, you have to develop these concept of operations reports. And this reports really focus in on really trying to understand how these innovative concepts or technology will be used, not only from the operators or our partners that develop these systems, but also trying to really gauge and understand how these systems will be used by all users. So what these concepts really relate to is trying to get an understanding of the type of services that will be offered through these technology components. So what you'll be hearing about one component of the NextOS is that public-facing element of the NextOS, and really touches on how can we improve the travel information services that are currently being available either by our partner agencies, MTS, NCDD, Caltrans, and our own travel information system that's currently available. And just for context, our existing travel information system was implemented back in 2007. So it's been some time that we've implemented the system. And this system really provides right now traffic, transit, and roadway condition information, either by a telephone or interactive voice response systems, or also through the web, and that's provided through the county. But what we're trying to do today is really enhance that system and really trying to understand how can we improve access to the transportation services based on the large amounts of data that's being collected, really to benefit all transportation users, including, for example, the elderly, or how do we provide services that are multilingual. So that's why we're here today. We've identified STAC as a key stakeholder to get insight and make sure that we have the opportunity to provide input as we start thinking about how the transportation systems will be developed. And that input then is provided and then developed and then articulated in this concept of operations report. And it's really the first step in planning technology projects. And then subsequent to that, then you get into more technical details on sort of the more design components of any technology project. And that's really the context here. We're here to provide some insight on what this new next generation 511 system is, what we're proposing, but also get your input as we start this the development of this ConOps. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Stacy Unholz from IBI, who will introduce the item and introduce the next generation concept operations report. And we'll be available for any questions after the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, good morning. This is Stacy Unholz with IBI Group. I am going to share a presentation, and hopefully I don't use Zoom too much, so I'm going to share. May I ask if if you can see the title slide of the presentation now?
Yes.
Terrific. Okay, great. So good morning. I'm the project manager supporting the development, as Alex mentioned, of a concept of operations for Sandag's next generation 511 system. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the project and how we will be reaching out to you as stakeholders to solicit input and feedback to ensure the system we conceptualize meets your needs. So as I mentioned, we're supporting Sandag at this part of the effort. This is an early part of the system engineering process, the development of a concept of operations. I illustrated just at a very high level a couple of components of the system engineering process. This is what helps deployers of technology projects have some consistency in the way that projects are designed and developed and deployed. And the foundational part of what we're doing now, the ConOps, is really to make sure that we have reached out to all relevant stakeholders and get your input on how you might use a 511 system. We want to make sure that the concept we develop is relevant and useful to the folks that will be using it. I'd like to start just with a little bit of discussion on the current system to give you kind of some context of where we're starting from. Sandag was one of the first deployers of a regional 511 traveler information system. It's available online at 511sd.com and by phone by dialing 511 from any landline or cell phone locally. The current system is really an information portal. It's a starting point that provides access to integrated traveler information, as well as external access to partner agencies. The traffic map that I'm showing now provides a lot of information, but to summarize, current incidents, average speeds, road and lane closures, construction events, other types of information. It's also available, of course, on the phone system, as I mentioned. Transit information, trip planning, and links to partner transit agencies. It's available in the transit tab of the website. Many of the options on the transit pages link directly to MTS or to NCTD. The 511 serves, as I mentioned, as an information portal to many other categories as well. iCommute and Fast Track. These are just a couple of examples of the kinds of information currently available on 511. It's also pushed out to Sandag social media. So I thought I'd share just a couple of examples, one from 511 Day in 2020, as you can see. And so that was a summary of the current system, but it's time for a refresh. It's time to improve, to enhance, to conceptualize a system that is in alignment with the regional plan and the 5 big moves that is foundational to the regional transportation plan. We're developing a concept that will better serve the travelers in and through the region. And the concept will include goals that we are in the process of establishing now. 2 examples are equitable and user-focused. We're looking to provide access to end-to-end mobility for all users. We'll imagine the requirements in the operational environment that allows users to plan trips, to book those trips, pay for them. 511 is intended to make multimodal options easily accessible, really meeting all users where they are. So the project development team have been working on defining a vision and setting goals for the ConOps. And as we reach out to stakeholders to understand user needs, I'll just provide a high-level summary of where we're looking to go on the path to conceptualizing and deploying a system. It will, as you see here on the slide, we're looking to improve access to all transportation users. And that, of course, includes the members of this community and this committee and the community that you represent. We want to facilitate improved access to multimodal trip planning and booking. Increase convenience. We want this to be convenient for all potential users of a new system. We want to bring in private sector innovations and work to collaborate with the private sector wherever it is appropriate. And we want to improve interregional coordination as well. We want to expand the scope of how our system works in tandem with adjacent systems. And of course, Sandag has experience having deployed 511. We want to benefit from the lessons learned in previous deployment. That's one of the issues that one of the components that we bring into development of the ConOps. So that brings me to the ask. Why am I addressing you here today? This is really an introduction to let you know that we want to solicit your input. We want to understand how your committee and the people that you represent might use 511. What do you need in the system? Again, the foundation of a ConOps is the needs of those who will be using the system. So this is just a brief introduction, but we will be soliciting your feedback to make sure that make sure that we're understanding the depth and the breadth of need of your communities. How do social services, how do agencies use 511 now? How can the agencies and the communities use 511 in the future? And we'll talk about what are the effective methods to reach STAX members and ultimately the customers they serve. And so to wrap up, what I am asking for here is just to take this as an introduction to the work we're doing. Watch for a survey link that will be distributing to facilitate that input and that feedback from you. If any of the content that I've discussed today resonates with you, if you'd like to provide us your input on how you use 511 now and what you would like to see the system include, what the service should include, what kinds of information, how it should be accessed. My colleague Michelle Boucher is collecting input as content to inform the ConOps. So please take note of the email if you could, and please feel free to provide us any input that comes to mind as we kind of put the finishing touches on a couple of different surveys that we will be providing to you in the near future. And with that, may I ask if there are any questions now, or I'm sorry, do we wait till the end of the meeting for questions?
We can go ahead and take questions now. Any member comments? Sharon?
Yes, I've used 511 by phone and by the website in the past. I'd like to be in a focus group on using the website, because a lot of the website people that evaluate or the surveys do not have enough questions that they really ask, or maybe some of us are using dark mode. There's all kinds of things that are different and unique, and I would like to be in a focus group. Are you planning on doing a focus group?
I think that that's a great idea. I will leave that to Alex to respond to specifically, but I appreciate that input. I agree that we need one-to-one input, and a focus group is probably a great way to do that. But I'll leave that to Alex to respond.
And
That is-
especially if you were saying consumer centric.
No, that's a great input. And let me bring this back to the consultant team. Let's discuss that, because what you're getting at is the application of a tool, or the way this information will be realized or implemented. We're not there yet, but I would still like to get your input on the level of insight, like you mentioned, when you're on, if it's something that's not really user-centric or friendly, that's the type of input we would need. Whether maybe we'll do a follow-up call, and Stacy, let's just maybe have a follow-up, if you want to use the email to provide that insight as well. But great comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members or attendees?
There are no hands raised or commenters on this item.
Okay.
Well, actually, there's a hand raised now.
Alex?
Yeah, just a quick question. And then, so is it given that any software will be compliant for the visual impaired?
ADA compliant, absolutely. That, and again, as Alex mentioned, that gets into kind of the next path, the next part of the system engineering process and the requirements development. But I can assure you that all development for public-facing systems will be ADA compliant.
And with that, at what level of accuracy can bus stops be found by using the system?
It depends on the data that comes into the system now. I think that's an excellent question in terms of our review of the current system and the data streams. We are planning a couple of technical workshops that we'll be conducting with the data providers. And so I'll make sure that question specifically is covered in those technical workshops.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Stacy, and thank you, members, for your comments.
Thank you.
We can go ahead and move on to item number 5, which is the STAC 2022 membership. And I wanted to just thank the subcommittee, Alex, Wayne, and Jay, who participated in that review committee. And I believe Ashley will share with us on this item.
Yes, hello. Sorry about that. As I mentioned in my email in May, we had 5 STAC positions open that were expiring this year. We had 3 individual members and 2 agency members. And I am happy to announce that the STAC membership committee, that was Wayne, Jay, and Alex, and Brian, we worked together to choose the 2022 applicants, and we welcome the following new members and returning champions to STAC. For our individual members, Todd Lordson, Todd Shaw, and Marissa Romero Lucero. And for agency members, we have Options for All and Jewish Family Services. We thank all the applicants, and SANDAG encourages those who weren't recommended for membership to continue to attend the STAC meetings and as a public attendee and apply for membership next year. I'm going to just share briefly my screen to give a preview of the membership. I will be sending out the new finalized membership later today. And so here it is. If anyone wanted to take a peek, if I need to make it bigger, please let me know. I might be able to do that. Let's do 150, and then let me know if you want me to move it down. And thank you.
Is that the current list? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Sharon, this is the current list. Below listed down here is just our standing agency members of FACT, MTS, and NCTD. So these are all of the individual and rotating agency members and the new people who applied.
Will there be a possibility to ask if any of us would like to provide our emails? Because I would like to have ways to contact people.
I think if someone would like to provide their emails to share, I can share that with the group as well when I send out the membership list as well. So,
especially the agencies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this item?
I don't see any other commenters on this item, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to actually do a little bit of moving around here. We're going to jump to items 7 through 9, and then we're going to go back to 6 right before the public hearing. So we can start with MTS on the transit operator update.
Hello, this is Carla Perez speaking for MTS. I unfortunately do not have any updates. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. We can go to NCTD.
Hi, Mary present. Nothing specific on numbers. We're still struggling with an operator shortage. NCTD has increased recruiting efforts to address that. In the meantime, the shortage is still prevalent across our agency and other transit jurisdictions. Can I comment on other things that are happening with NCTD, or can we only speak on this item? Okay. Our service change was recent on July 10th. We have a new rider's guide available for our new modes, and more info can be found at our website, gonctd.com. We are encouraging riders to take the coaster train to the Del Mar races and to Comic-Con. NCTD has adopted its budget and it's available for viewing at gonctd.com. Our ridership survey is available, and we would like people to please comment their experiences so that we can incorporate that feedback. And our next service change is expected for October. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. It looks like Sharon has a comment.
You have a question for Mary?
Yes.
Yes, Mary. Your schedules, it's hard for me to get them. The reason it's hard for me to get them is a lot of times I go to UTC, and at UTC, the buses, the 101 bus just sits there and he's maybe not in the bus. So I can't get the schedules. You no longer mail them. They're not at the transit store downtown. That's a challenge. Can you look at some other ways to get the accessibility for us to get those schedules?
Sure thing. I can look into that. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. And then I did have a question for MTS. MTS also, there's some electronic signage that is out, not working. What do we do about notifying about the electronic signs not working?
Hey, this is Beverly Neff with MTS. Can you hear me?
Hi, Beverly.
Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello.
Hi, Sharon. There's 2 ways for when you say electronic signage, are you talking about the variable message signs like at the transit centers or on the buses?
Transit centers, in particular Old Town, the one at the one end is by the store is not working at all.
Okay. So the easiest way to get the quickest response is just to go through a CRM complaint because it gets recorded. But I'll go ahead and take note of that, and I'll let the project manager know. So it's at Old Town, specifically where?
It's the electronic sign that's next to the store.
Okay.
There's one at the end where you come up the stairwell, or the other one where it's by the store, where I come around the backside from the 30 bus over there because I usually have luggage with me.
Okay, and it's just completely turned off?
It's completely nothing happening, and I can't see that far to the other end.
Okay.
And I like to get in the first car for safety.
Okay. Okay,
Thanks.
I will let the project manager know, no problem.
Oh,
And then,
yay, Beverly. Sorry.
And then Megan, if it's okay, I mean, I'm not a panel member, but I could provide a quick update on our driver and service change activities.
Sure.
So we are, just like NCTD, still struggling with a driver shortage. We are unfortunately down a lot of drivers and we're having missed trips. So unfortunately, we had to make the difficult decision to actually cut some service in September. Our next service change is in September and we're still finalizing the routes that will be impacted, but we're looking at overall about a 25% cut because our driver situation is just so bad. We're trying to focus on routes that are frequent. So we'll go from like a 12-minute frequency to a 15-minute frequency. So it won't be too noticeable, hopefully. But we're forced to make these changes to be able to provide the service that we're advertising. So you will see some service cuts in September. We're hoping to turn that driver situation around as soon as possible. We upped our driver bonus from a $1,000 bonus that we started offering during COVID to now a $5,000 driver bonus. So we're hoping that'll encourage applicants and we're hoping to return the service with our January service change.
Thank you for the updates, Beverly. Any public comments on this item?
There are no commenters on this item, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And no member comments either. All right, we can go ahead and move on to item number 8, which is the updates for FACT. So just a few things for us. We're experiencing a lot more demand. Right now we're back to our pre-COVID levels. And so we're in the middle of doing some adjusting to make the dollars stretch further. And so we are experiencing more demand than what our funding allows us to provide for, especially with the increases in fuel and the state of the economy right now. So we're pushing a lot of our referrals and offering, options that are available to be used. And when there is another option, I'm asking riders to go ahead and utilize those options and use our Ride Fact program when they have no other option. We also have an update about our pilot program that is a contactless payment pilot. We are partnering with a group that is using technology in our drivers' vehicles so that people can pay their fare via a debit or credit card. If it has the tap pay technology on it, then they're able to utilize that instead of paying cash. They can still pay cash for their fare as well. And so we are collecting feedback on how that's going, both from the drivers as well as from our riders. And then FACT is also participating in the working groups for the 511 Next Generation, as well as the new mobility working group. And other than that, I don't have any other updates. If anyone has any questions for me, please feel free to ask or to contact me after the meeting. Any public comments?
There are no commenters on this item. Chair Schmidt.
Okay, thank you. And so we can go to the staff report.
Hello, Ashley again. We just have a few updates from our Sustainable Communities team. I was asked to share some Housing Acceleration Program information. I will also be putting some of the links in the chat for registration. As part of the Housing Acceleration Program, SANDAG is in collaboration with the Southern California Association of Governments. STAC is invited to a free housing policy forum on equitable home ownership. Join us for the virtual forum on Tuesday, August 2nd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This forum will be a discussion on strategies, policies, and resources needed for equitable homeownership and access to capital. Participants will gain an insight into the role between lenders, homeowners, developers, and nonprofits. Additionally, you will have a chance to learn about state and regional funding sources that support home ownership, accessory dwelling unit development, and other initiative solutions that meet the region's need for new homes. And so I will share the link in the chat afterwards. We also have a little update on our Youth Opportunity Pass pilot. We have seen good increases in the youth ridership. For the month of May, we had a 38% increase of youth riders throughout the county. And we are looking for long-term funding for the 18 and under, as well as maybe possibly searching for 24 and under. We're also kicking off our Next Gen Rapid Study. It's a Caltrans planning grant for advanced planning on 3 rapid routes. We are working with folks at both agencies at MTS and NCTD. We found these routes when we were applying for the grant, and we just got our consultant H&TB on, and we did a kickoff last week. And another study that we are starting is our Transit Subsidy Impact Fair study. We're going to be kicking off late summer, early fall. NCTD and MTS, we will have them help us review our scope of work before we get started. And we applied for a Caltrans grant but didn't get it, and we may reapply this fall to help finish the study. But we're going to be taking public input to see what the realities are of funding and what trade-offs are if we have more money coming into the region, and how we can prioritize non-capital dollars, and kind of see if there should be increased services or lower fares, or reducing fares, or a mix of both. And lastly, we have 2 of our CMCPs for Sandag finishing up. We have South Beta Sorrento and San Vicente. The public comment periods are still open, and South Beta Sorrento's comment period will end on the 29th of this month, and San Vicente's will end on the 30th. And I will be providing links to their draft documents and comment forms in the chat. And those are all the updates. If anyone has any questions or comments for me.
Thank you, Ashley. Any public comments?
I don't see any commenters on this item, Chair Schmidt.
Okay, thank you. We can go to item 6, which is the TDA recommendation STAC advising on unmet transit needs. Brian.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, STAC. Thank you. So TDA is the Transportation Development Act, and that's the state legislation essentially that provides a lot of funding for MTS and NCTD and Sandag for planning purposes. And a lot of that goes for transit planning, things like that. So this is kind of in relation to the next item, which is the public hearing, but because we get so much funding with this, we do have to do audits. And so we do annual fiscal audits, and then we do a triennial performance audit. And so we just finished that audit up, and those reports went to our transportation committee as well as the board for their review. And then we're going to send that back over to the state so they can see it. But essentially the auditors dig into a lot of the things that all 3 agencies, and including actually FACT, because FACT receives state funds to be the CTSA for our region. They dig into how things are doing with performance. It's not really, like I said, the fiscal audit, because that's another thing, but they're just kind of looking to make sure that the things that the agencies are doing are good practices and help, the agencies do what they're supposed to be doing, which is, mostly providing transit or the other services. The auditors found all 4 agencies were in full compliance with all the things that the agencies are supposed to do in terms of the state legislation. But they did offer up some recommendations on how we all could improve things that we do over the next 3 years until the next triennial performance audit. One of them was that we should really work with FACT and the STAC to enhance the role of the STAC to advise on unmet transit needs. And so, we do this. The next item is our public hearing, and we announced that out a month ahead of time. And Ashley was great on working with our folks in our public information office to get that out to I think some news publications, and then we did social media announcements and things like that. And then this is generally our most attended meeting from the public each year, because folks do hear about this and come and provide the comments. And then those comments are generally meant to go into the record. And then if there's specific comments that require some feedback, maybe at the next meeting, we have developed a way that we can report back on some specific things if some concerns were raised that probably do necessitate a reply and some feedback. But then also the idea is that these comments go into our coordinated plan, which is our short-range transit plan and health and human services plan. And we bring that plan to you whenever we're doing that update. It used to be every 2 years in the past, and we're changing that to be every 4 years now to kind of align a little better with the regional plan. But that report is very important, because in that report, we gather a lot of information. We gather what type of transit and specialized transportation services are out there. We try to understand what the needs are in terms of, where do people need these types of services? And so we do a lot of maps and some great data things. We also then try to understand the gaps between what services are out there and what services are needed. And, we always realize every time we do this that there's a lot of gaps in the region, and that's generally due to funding, right? We don't have enough funding to do everything that we'd all like to do. And so having an unmet needs hearing like we're about to do, as well as doing the coordinated plan, helps us identify all of the gaps in services that are out there, and then prioritize those needs and those gaps for a lot of the grantees or the agencies to try and understand what are the priorities in meeting that gap with the limited funding. And then if more funding does come to the region, now that we have all that listed and the priorities listed, we can then, the grantees who compete or apply for grants can then point to those priorities in the coordinated plan as what they're trying to achieve with the funding that they're asking for. So, and all in all, generally it's a good process. But I think what the TDA auditor pointed to was that STAC and FACT and SANDAG probably could do better in really making this more than just a once a year type of thing. They're recommending that maybe, at each meeting, we review unmet needs and talk about them a little more. They recommend that we bring an item specifically to the transportation committee to let them know what we heard at the unmet needs hearing. I think years ago we may have, and at some point that kind of fell off the radar, but I think that's a good chance for us as well to bring something like that back and make sure that the transportation committee at SANDAG is hearing what we're hearing. So, it's not just perfunctory duty that we're doing and not then actually doing something about it. So I think there's some good recommendations in that item. And I thought we'd just bring this item to the STAC to hear what you have to say. I know Megan liked this as well and wanted us to bring this item and talk about it more and find out ways that we can make the unmet needs hearing have a bigger impact downstream, I guess, from just the STAC hearing it once a year. So Chair, with that, I think I've hopefully given a good enough overview of what we've been tasked to do, and then if we want to discuss ways of moving forward, be happy to hear it and take notes and work on making those changes.
Thanks, Brian. I was just thinking of how there's been kind of more funding in the region available for specialized transportation, and how I'd like to see more coordination between the county and SANDAG and anybody else who may be offering funding to go towards transportation to participate in the STAC meetings, or at least in the unmet needs hearing. But if we have that as an ongoing item, maybe there's a way for the county to also be a participant in that, as they are often these days putting out calls for projects and things like that around transportation. Does any member of the public have any comments? I see Arun member comment.
Well, hang on, Megan. Can we go with
No
public
hands
comments?
raised for the, or commenters for this item.
Thanks, Donna.
Okay. Arun?
Thanks, Megan. And thank you, Brian, for that update on the TDA audit. I really just want to restate and underline what you already said, because it's so important, particularly for the SSTAC to recognize. I want to just remind SSTAC members that we're very diverse, very broad, and in my view, a powerful coalition that represents, by law, by statute, we are here to represent the need in our region. And I think the audit rightly pointed out that we're not spending enough time doing enough to call attention to the need that's out there. And it's a great reminder to for all of us to do that, because that's essentially our purpose. We do a lot of stuff at SSTAC, studies and updates and reviews. However, one of the main reasons we exist and we're here is to call attention to the need for services in this region. So as Chair, Megan's aware of the audit, and she will be doing more information, updates, et cetera, at the meetings on a more regular basis. Brian's there to keep an eye on the process as well. And I just want to remind you, but also recommend that that in my view, I think we all know and hear about needs. It sounds technical, but if you're an agency and if you have to decline somebody because you don't have funds, or if you can't serve Saturdays and Sundays because of, again, resources issues, you know, that's an unmet need, and we want the STAC needs to hear about that. Similarly, you know, if you know of congregate housing that can't get people to and from shopping or meals or appointments, you know, that's a need, and it doesn't have to be any more detailed and technical than that. But the more we hear about these things, the more we can understand, you know, what needs to happen, what's not happening right now, and then it helps us and SANDAG in presenting that to SSTAC. My second quick point is that Brian also mentioned that we've not been going before the Transportation Committee, because we're a subcommittee of that group. That's a really powerful group and representative that we have that speaks to the board. So I do hope that we can get on a schedule like ITOG and other groups that can periodically, maybe quarterly basis, go before the Transportation Committee and tell them about things that we feel the board and the Transportation Committee needs to know about. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. Any other public or member comments?
I don't see any commenters at this moment, Chair Schmidt.
Okay, thank you. And we can go ahead then and go to the public hearing. And I believe Ashley's going to kick that off.
Hello, here again. In accordance with the Public Utilities Code 99238, one of the responsibilities of Social Services Transportation Advisory Council is to annually participate in the identification of transit needs in the jurisdiction, including unmet transit needs that may exist within the jurisdiction of the council and may be reasonable to meet establishing or contracting for new public transportation or specialized transportation services. or by expanding existing services. Additionally, per Public Utilities Code 99238.5, SANDAG shall ensure the establishment and implementation of a citizen participation process utilizing the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council as a mechanism to solicit the input of transit-dependent and transit-disadvantaged persons, including the elderly, disabled, and persons of limited means. The process shall include provisions for at least one public hearing in the jurisdiction represented by the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council. To date, we had one comment sent through our public comment form to be read aloud, and I will read this later on in the hearing. Per the instructions earlier, if you would like to speak, 1, notify staff by clicking on your camera, or 2, by raising your hand. Please make sure to unmute your microphone to speak. And if you are not speaking, please make sure to mute your microphone and that your camera is turned off. For clarity of the record, please identify yourself each time you speak. Please only use the chat box if you are having difficulties, technical difficulties. Any comments that will be received today will be investigated and, if necessary, forwarded to the appropriate agency to response. Responses will be provided at our next September 20th, 2022 STAC meeting. Chair Schmidt, would you like to open the public hearing?
Yes. It looks like we do have one hand up from a number ending in 435. I believe you're on. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Robin Joy Maxon, and I'm chair of the Ramona Community Planning Group. We have up here a population that is, car locked is the term that we use. We don't have transportation options. There are, I think, 3 buses that may come by in the morning, very early morning, geared to commuters, but we have nothing for our residents who have healthcare appointments, or for our youth. We submitted a proposed pilot to the Pilot Youth Pass program on areas where we could use assistance with offering that benefit to our rural youth. We're really excited to hear that you're having a hearing on this topic. For our community, this is not a new issue. We have limited access up here. If you look at the U.S. Census reports, you'll see that we have a substantial number of households with no cars. We have a lot of low-income housing with folks who don't have transportation options. So we have a lot of vulnerable people up here, and I hope that this hearing will address the issue and also address our proposal on this pilot to the Youth Pilot Pass program. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised on this item.
Okay. Any member comments? Heidi?
Hi again, this is Clyde Kohler. I just keep thinking about how I have been on STAC for years, and I have brought up over and over again how hard it is to be on a bus. It used to be complaining about call outs not happening. So here's my point briefly is it's very expensive to send me or anyone else around by specialized transportation. It would be so much more efficient for some of us if we can at least know where we are and when we're approaching our stop. Without that, I'm either not going anywhere or I'm going to have to use specialized transportation. I have avoided that so far, although I have the little approval. I'm just saying, could we please get automated stop announcements on the buses? They're starting to have, at least some of them will announce when you approach the bus, this is such and such a bus. number, and that's somewhat helpful. But when I'm on that bus and I'm trying to go anywhere but where I always go, then or even then, I might get disoriented and not know where I am. So just briefly, could we please focus on getting automated announcements onto the buses everywhere? Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. Arun?
Thank you, Megan. I have a recommendation for SSTAC and for SANDAG, and I hope that the SSTAC will consider this. I would like to recommend that that there is a regular ongoing process to collect information from agencies like FACT, from MTS, NCTD, specialized transportation providers in the nonprofit sector as well, and 211. All these agencies that get requests for services and that have potentially have data on services that were not provided or needs that were not met because they had to deny trips or nothing was available at the right time. So I just would like to see some follow-up on a discussion on the process to collect this data on an ongoing basis, because as we're seeing, it's not as if we don't have a need in San Diego today for specialized transportation, but the silence on this matter in the public hearing indicates that it's very difficult to articulate that need, particularly spontaneously and in a short time frame window like this. So I really would strongly urge us to have a process that's ongoing, that we look at every meeting, and where we try to capture this information that we know is there on an ongoing basis, so that there's a ready-made sort of cumulative report that's available at the time when this hearing rolls around every year, and we know at any given time, you know, what needs we're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. Sharon?
Yes, I'd like to agree with Clyde and add a little more to that. A lot of times I ride in the back of the bus because of the low floor designs. The low floor in the front seats, you feel like you're a bird looking out on a perch. It's absolutely not as enjoyable. And if you're riding a bus for over 30 minutes, you want to, look out the window a little bit. So I sit in the back, and 90% of the time, the back speakers do not work. So if the announcements are made only in the front and the speaker system isn't monitored to see if it's working in the back, then you have another issue on top of the hearing the announcements. You need to hear them in the front and the back. Thanks. Thanks, Clyde.
Thank you, Sharon. Any other comments? Clyde, do you have another comment?
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Sharon. That was a good point. I've also noticed I have been in specialized transportation before. I've been in the buses, or the vans, but when we use alternate, like a Uber driver or that sort of thing, they don't seem to think they need to tell us where we are either. And I would like to see that built into contracts with other providers, that they need to instruct their drivers that passengers need to know where they are. There are some, I haven't experienced it personally, but I've certainly heard of some really disastrous circumstances that have arisen because people didn't know where they were. So just that little point. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. Jan?
Hi, this is Jan Scott, and I live in Fallbrook. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The reason that I was asked to come to this meeting today, and I want to represent Fallbrook because we are like Ramona in a no man's land for transportation. We don't have any inner transportation throughout the community other than the senior foundation, which provides bus services for $10. But we have a hard time with Lyft and accessing Uber or other transportation modes. So the community has been looking at this. There's no transportation to our senior citizen center. There's no transportation to the community college, and they were supposed to provide a bus service to the Park and Ride. Well, there's no longer a bus service to the Park and Ride. There is no bus service from Temecula to Escondido. So we've been kind of stranded here, and I was hoping that Sandag would look at our situation also and kind of come up with a solution.
Thank you, Jan. I just wanted to piggyback off what you were saying and just mention that I've had a lot of communication with the Fallbrook Health District regarding the lack of transportation and like you were saying, to the health center there, as well as the community college, and then up to Rainbow and Riverside. So I know that the health district is currently working on some options. So I'm not sure if you're in touch with them, but I'm sure they would, appreciate your feedback as they plan for that. Marcy.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to, from the perspective of a small agency, I wanted to reiterate some of what Arun mentioned and some of what Brian said about unmet needs and sharing the information that we have about clients who call or approach us and we can't help them either because of a lack of funding or limited resources or limits on the way that we're able to use the funding that we're able to get. Certain kinds of transportation may not be allowable with certain grants that we get. At our agency, we had, through the city of San Diego, we had some CARES Act funding that we've been using for the last year that was for immunocompromised individuals who needed to get back and forth to cancer and dialysis treatments. That funding has ended, and now we have, 100 clients that we're counting on that type of transportation that now can't get it, and we don't have any additional funding for it. So I think that we should share these unmet needs on a regular basis in this meeting and any other meetings that we're all in together, so that together we have a hope of presenting a true picture of what the needs are and what the gaps are, and try to figure out how to get more funding or to coordinate with each other better in order to meet the needs. And just as a side note, and it's probably not the right forum for this, but I'm increasingly frustrated by the fact that funders are now not wanting to fund overhead expenses and not wanting to fund even personnel expenses. So, I mean, we're doing our best to help as many people as possible, but it's not volunteer work for us. This is our work. These are our livelihood, and so I don't know how agencies are supposed to fund things like rent and salaries and only pay for transportation. It's just a little bit of a frustration for me, and I don't know the answers, but I just wanted to put that out there for everyone.
Thank you, Marcy. Ashley?
All right, I was just going to go ahead and read the one comment that was submitted through our comment form from Joe Mullick. I would like to see any one of the board members try to use public transportation to get to a jury duty from Ramona to any of the courthouses. Let's face it, public transportation does not meet the need to get anyone out of the rural areas of our county to jobs within the city without spending 4 to 8 hours on public transportation services. It's time to build what has been promised for new roads and better infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Jan?
Jan Scott, you can go ahead.
Okay, I've learned how to use the unmute button. I just wanted to let you know that yes, I am in contact. I wasn't finished talking. I am in contact with San Diego Sandag as far as like bicycle lanes. I'm in contact with the Fallbrook Regional Healthcare District, with the Senior Citizen Center, with the Foundation for Senior Care. So I'm pretty knowledgeable about what Fallbrook needs. And I'm really asking for help for our community, just like the people from Ramona. We're in a kind of a dead zone. But with that being said, I also wanted to say thank you to North County Transit District for upgrading the 306 Breeze. And now they have provided services and are working on it to be completed in 2023 to provide transportation to the northeast end of Fallbrook, which will bring us closer to the healthcare district, but it provides services now to the Fallbrook food pantry and to medical services. So I wanted to say kudos to them, and I applaud you for rising to the occasion and assessing our needs and reacting to them. And that's it.
Thank you, Jan.
I don't see any other commenters on this item. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So with that, do we need to, let's see, I think, we've decided based on the comments, we will have a standing item on unmet needs going forward at this STAC meeting. And then I believe we will have responses next month regarding this item. And do we need to do any formal process to end the hearing?
No, Megan, I think we can just close out of the public hearing.
Okay. Then we will go ahead and do that, and we will go to item 11, which is the upcoming meetings. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 20th at 10 a.m. Are there any comments on the upcoming meeting?
There are no commenters on this item, Chair Schmidt.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for your participation. And we look forward to following up at the next meeting. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.